level tickets as the Bulls take on the Mavericks January 10th with its season of streaming sweepstakes. Make sure you visit chsn.com/sweeps to secure your entry today when you sign up for a new CHSN subscription and enter online through December 23rd. Oh, you got to love that holiday music playing as well. 'Tis the season to be streaming Bulls basketball on CHSN. All right, time to get defensive with our Illinois Lottery Defensive Player of the Game tonight in Cleveland. It has to deal with the former Cavalier, Isaac Okoro, doing what he does best. Active hands, stripping this basketball. KG leading to the fast break, and we know what Matas does when he has open space.
Look, Isaac is so important to this team defensively. And, you don't see these things in the stat sheet. You see the way he's down there battling the big guys at 6'5", but he strips them when they're down low, does a lot of little things that you guys don't see, boxing out, being rough, bumping a guy off of a pick. Those are all the little things that he does and came up with the defensive player of the game.
And that was one of 3 steals for Okoro, 12 for the Bulls tonight. Let's go to the Xfinity game report to hear from Bulls head coach Billy Donovan.
The byproduct of you guys getting home?
You hope so. Hope so. Like I said, I think, for us, when you have, not only 7 guys, I think our toughness and our IQ, went away in a lot of ways with Tre, and then Isaac, Zach, Herter, but like I said, there was enough in the locker room, in my opinion, for us to, it's not an excuse. We've gotten some guys back, but I think the identity of how we've tried to play early in the year, the first, 6 or 7 games, maybe even longer than that, but, we're going to have to continue to try to generate that kind. I mean, obviously, defensively, we got to get better the third quarter. I thought we had a really, really hard time controlling and containing the ball, especially when we got up by 14 after they called that timeout.
You've been fielding a lot of questions lately about Matas' development in year 2. Beyond the shot making tonight, no turnovers in 33 minutes. A couple of defensive possessions you'd like to have back probably. But overall, what do you think of his game tonight?
I think he was really, really good tonight. And I really felt like his attention to detail was really good. And that's been the big challenge that we've been really putting on him. And I know a lot of times people look at the stat sheet and they look at maybe rebounds or, points or what he shoot from the field. And, those things are certainly important, but, they're not on ESPN showing stuff to me a lot of times that impacts winning, and trying to get him to understand the things that he has to do to really impact winning. And I thought, he got out on the break. I thought he made really, really good decisions with the ball. He only had 1 turnover. I thought he played in pick and roll. It was a couple of rebounds late I thought he could have come down with. But I just liked his attention to, the game plan, what we're trying to do. And there was a lot of discipline there. And that's what he needs to do. And if he can do that, he's got the talent level, obviously, to get out in transition and dunk and shoot and put it on the floor and do those kind of things. So, but I thought the growth of him on what I would consider maybe people would look at as the little things, he made certainly some strides here tonight in that area.
With Vuce, it seemed like throughout that losing streak, I don't know, he just didn't seem right. I don't know if he was 100% healthy or if he was just in a pissed off mindset. Whatever it was, it seems to have flipped the last couple of games. Is that just me guessing, or do you think there was something behind it where he just seemed to not be normal Vuce, a little lethargic, and just some gaffes he usually doesn't make throughout that losing streak?
One is I think he holds himself to like a really, really, really high standard. And when that standard's not met, I think he can get extremely frustrated because he
beats himself up, kind of?
No question. Okay. And I think he does. And then the other thing, too, is I do think, our team was out of sorts and a lot, really appreciated Josh and Vuce during that period because, Josh had to handle the ball quite a bit. Kobe was kind of in and out, I was playing, but we just didn't have a lot of guards, right? And Vuce is always going to be the recipient off a good guard play when you find him in the pocket or on a pick and pop situation on rolls. And then I think when he got his opportunities, quite honestly, he wasn't shooting the ball like he was capable of. I don't think he was making that floater in a lane like he normally does. And I just think he holds himself to a high standard, and I think he gets really, aggravated with himself. Right. And I think that's why he's been a great player because he holds himself to a pretty high standard. But I do think that there's been maybe a little bit more chemistry inside of our team since we've gotten, some guys back. But I don't know if the flip is switched as much as, he's he's always been really professional in my opinion. He always works and he always holds himself to a high standard. And, I just appreciate the way he's kind of come through that, for himself. And listen, I think we all got to help each other,
right.
and that's just the way we are. It is, we just have all help each other.
And he's gone in these lulls before where he has gotten down on himself and it's taken a week or two to get up.
Yeah, he does. And, he also, like I've tried to explain to him throughout his time here, is even if he's not making shots or he's missing stuff, I think sometimes he views it as like he's letting the team down, or he should be doing that as a veteran guy and a guy that's been in this league. You know what I mean? When you need something. Like I thought he made some great plays tonight coming down the stretch, made some big shots. That bank shot was a big shot, made some really good plays. But he also has got to understand that when he does get sometimes frustrated with himself, and I do think there was probably a little bit of frustration with the way we were playing stylistically with everybody out. It was just, there wasn't a great flow in my opinion. I think I made some comments, when we lost some of those games. I just did not like, we were not playing the right way, and I think Vooch, coupled with that and his own standard, he can get a little frustrated. But he's also got to realize with the way he defensive rebounds, his leadership, being a veteran, there's other things he brings to the table for us other than that. And when he gets like that, it certainly doesn't help us and won't help him. Right. So I just appreciate the, coming out of this, he's really trying to think to step up.
Really, beyond these last two games, I think the sample is large enough to say that Tre, when he's on and playing this game, he means so much to this lineup. Do you remember the point when you realized like how much he would actually end up meaning to this team, to the squad?
Yeah, probably last year. I made comments last year. He's just like a total winner. He's got it, however you describe that. He's really, really smart. He's got a really good IQ. Him with his ankle and, dealing with his foot last year with the sprain and all that stuff. I'm not saying he got hurt because he was playing too many minutes, but we got to make sure we're managing his minutes. So that's what we've tried to do to try to keep him on the floor because, to your point, he is that valuable and he brings a lot of different things to the table. He can really defend. He's an underrated rebounder. He can guard multiple positions, and then it takes pressure off of Josh and Kobe sometimes, because it's a third ball handler out there with them. And he's also really good screening and rolling into the pocket and making plays, and he can drive downhill and make reads. So, yeah, he's been – I felt like last year you could see those things.
And obviously, we talked about this a little bit pregame, but it felt like Matas, we have a larger sample. It felt like Matas is comfortable at the 3 today. Is any part of you starting to wonder, like, maybe I know you want a guy to be positionally versatile, but is he maybe more comfortable at the 3 in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I do think in fairness to Matas, like there are matchups that are tough as a second-year player who's, going to only get stronger and physically bigger as he matures. Those matchups, quite honestly, are probably a little bit easier for him physically. Not to say that there aren't physical, wing players in the league. I don't mean it that way, but when he is having to go hypothetically against a Julius Randle or a Mobley or someone like that, those guys are playing close to the basket and they're really, really physical. And those are tough matchups for a second-year player like Matas, who's going to only get stronger. So there are some times I think if you can get him, to a small forward spot for some of the game, not all of the game, because obviously a lot of teams in the NBA are playing a little bit smaller, but I don't mind playing Matas with two bigs. So I never looked at Matas as a big. So if we've got Zach or Jalen or Vooch, 2 of the 3 out there together, it's not like we were talking about earlier, that's going to impact Matas' minutes. I'll just slide Matas to the small forward spot, and try to play him there some if we need to. And I'm totally, with his skill set, really kind of playing. I mean, we could go ultra big. I think I did it maybe not very long, but we had 2 bigs out there. And I think it was maybe Patrick and Matas were out there together with Kobe, so like Matas can play anywhere. I do think when he is, when it was maybe Josh, Kobe, and Kevin when we were a little bit banged up, and now Matas is at the 4 spot. There are nights where there's some tough matchups.
Well, you don't get a lot of technicals, but the next time you do, I'm going to give you a chance to offset your fine in advance. What do you think of the 2-person freezer?
I actually, I told them, listen, there's a lot to watch. I think there was some missed calls on both sides probably. You know what? I actually thought they did a good job. I really did. I told them that after the game that I thought they did about as good as you can do. It's hard, man. Those guys, with games flying up and down, guys are holding and grabbing. Sometimes you don't have the right angle. And you know what? They kind of managed. I thought the game as well as they could have, quite
I
honestly.
didn't see a lot of players complain.
No, they did a really good job. And I told both of them that after the game because I really believe that. Because it was hard. You know, outside the score, having to keep change from 47.2 to whatever it was. I said, Ray, can we get it organized here right now? Like, you know, and he was trying, but I thought they did a good job. I really did. All right. Thank you. Yep.
All right, that was Bulls head coach Billy Donovan after this win tonight. Time to get to our privileged memorable moment. We're looking at Kevin Huerter with this very slick bounce pass to Matas, KG, and you know Matas knows what to do with it.
Yeah, hey, look, Matas now leading the Bulls with 20 dunks, or 20 dunks for the season. Yeah. And you know when he gets close, it's going to be a highlight. I just absolutely love to watch him go up there and dunk the basketball. He just threw that one in.
2 of his 24 points with that dunk right there. KG, I know you remember those moments where you just get up and just throw it into the
long time ago, man. long time ago. Now I need a trampoline if I'm going to get up
there. Just a little assistance just to get him up there. All right, Cam Smith back with my man, Kendall Gill. We just heard from Billy Donovan, obviously seen that highlight from Matas Buzelis in this Bulls 136-125 win over the Cleveland Cavaliers. So another win for this team in the last 3 days against Cleveland. Moved to 12-15 on the season so far. So you have these moments for this team where you can see resemblances of what we saw earlier in the year when they were 5-0, KG.
Yeah, and, you know, because they have all their players come back, you're starting to see 7 guys in double figures again. You're starting to see 34 assists, which they had tonight. You're starting to see 60 points in the paint. These are all things that they did earlier in the season. So it's not about, you know, well, the Bulls have the light bulb has finally gone off. No, they got healthy, and now all of and I made this analogy earlier this week that now they got all of their tools in the toolbox again. Okay, and that's what it is. Now, hopefully, we can go down to Atlanta and get to there as well, because now that's telling me things are really starting to turn around. Also, we're creeping back to getting to 500 basketball.
All right, we're going to take another break here on Toyota Bulls Post Game Live. We're going to talk about that matchup against the Hawks that starts on Sunday. Stay with us on Chicago Sports Network. Welcome back in, everybody. And we have another busy day on tap here at CHSN. Tomorrow, Blackhawks making their last stop on their Canadian road trip. Coverage starts at 1:30 with Blackhawks Countdown Live. And it's the Hawks versus the Senators in Ottawa. Be sure to stick around for post game after the final horn. It's all right here on Chicago Sports Network. Time to get into our Four Seasons heat check for the night. And sorry, Cleveland, it's not Chicago. It's you. We've been picking on the city of Cleveland, KG, this week. It started off with the Bears dominating Shedeur Sanders, Myles Garrett, and the Cleveland Browns 31-3. And then, you know what, a couple of double-digit wins by this Bulls team against the Cavs.
Not bad at all. Listen, Chicago continues this dominance over Cleveland. And, you know, I wanted to see Shedeur Sanders do well, but the Bulls win.
Yeah.
You know, but listen, this is good for the Bulls. I mean, for the Bulls and the Bears. Hopefully the Bears go out there and take care of business against our arch rival, the Green Bay Packers, tomorrow night. And then the Bulls go down south to Atlanta and take care of business there.
Yeah, for sure. You know the city's going to be on fire tomorrow. 40 degrees, and I'm saying it like it's going to be 80 degrees tomorrow. But it's going to be a lot going on in Chicago when the Bears face off against the Packers. But getting back to the Bulls, as you mentioned, KG, Sunday against the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta. Then they turn back around and play them again on Tuesday. So another one of those like mini playoff series. We just saw it against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Another one against this Atlanta team that just got Tre Jones back, who missed 22 games.
And here's another thing where the Bulls can grow, okay? Go down and keep this winning streak consistent. Yeah. Go down, win on the road, because now that builds big-time confidence when you come back to the United Center.
All right, there you go. A little preview to Kendall's Keys for Sunday. That does it for Toyota Bulls Post Game Live. From my man Kendall Gill, I'm Cam Smith, and our entire team at Chicago Sports Network. Take care, everybody.